Namasreshtham manumapi shachiputram matrasvarupam rupam tasyagrajam urupurim amaturim goshtavatim radha kundam girivaram Oho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Sri Gurum Tam Natosmi Nindantam Pulakotkarena Vikasat Nipa prasuna chavim prodhvi kritya bhujadvayam hari hari tu cāvirbhāvo'nanta muhu nrityantam drutamasru nirjarachayayih sinchantam urvitalam Gayantam nija parshadaih parivritam Angora chandran numaha Alibih paripalitah pravalitah Sanandamalokitah Pratyasam sumanah phalodaya vidho Samodamamudita Vrindaranya bhuvi prakasha madhura sarvatishayi sriya Radha madhavayoh pramodayatu mam Ullalasa kalpadrumaha Jaya Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath E Chai Gosai Rakari Charana Vandan Jaha Hoite Bighnanash Abhishta Puran Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Jai Sri Radhe. So we are continuing with the fifth anucheda of the Priti Sandarbha. Today has been a very interesting day. I've tried many times to get this recording done, and there have been so many obstacles. Finding a proper venue is a difficult task. And so I'm hoping there'll be no interruptions again. So basically we're in this segment within the fifth anucheda where the teachings of Jara Bharat to Rahugana are being given, and what basically is doing is that Jara Bharat is putting forth various purva pakshas for what is the paramartha. So paramartha and purusha, param purushartha, paramartha is really the same idea. We have the idea of the highest goal or the ultimate goal, the ultimate purpose of human life. So what is the ultimate goal that we're seeking to achieve? So in the previous segment, we were talking about sacrifices, and in the sacrifices, the idea was presented, was stated by Jara Bharat that perishable ingredients and so on, they result only in a perishable result. And so, therefore, could sacrifices, since the result of sacrifices was perishable, going to the heavenly planets and so on, that therefore this could not be the ultimate goal. So the perishability is the first characteristic that we have to eliminate from the ultimate goal. So that leaves a lot of things out. The things that we seek, we have to find in everything. We have to find the eternal ingredient, and that is what we are aiming at. So perishability was the first thing that was rejected. So now we're just completing that segment. I left out this last little bit because it was a bit complicated, and I thought I would get a couple of complicated matters settled together in this particular lecture. So today's subjects are a little bit arcane in the sense that they're not things that we'd really generally deal with. But they're useful knowledge, and you have to see how how Jiva Goswami uses these things. And of course, they're very useful in terms of how Jiva Goswami's mind works. So today, there are things from Mimamsa and also from the Nyaya Shastra, the Tarka Shastra, that are being used, let's say, in the reasoning process. And so it will be, let's say, interesting to those who are intellectual, but perhaps not so interesting to those people who are Ruchi Pradhan and who are looking for Radha and Krishna Leela. Nevertheless, we strive to remember Radha and Krishna in everything we do. So let's pray to them that their inspiration will lead us to their lotus feet. So, what he was saying, what he said before, so what Jiva Goswami has argued here, and this is what he's doing. He's taking the Purva Pakshas raised by Jora Bharat, and he is placing conditions on them to make them let's say, see how how the argument of Jora Bharat can be used in terms of understanding bhakti. So this is, and let's just read this here, and you'll see what I'm saying. So, cāvirbhāvo'nanta tadīya-phalānantya-śravaṇāt. So this is still talking about bhakti. The appearance of bhakti is eternal or infinite. This appearance of bhakti is verily infinite, right? So it's not perishable. That's the point he's making. And so, because its result has been described as being infinite or everlasting. So it's not a perishable result. So therefore, you have scriptural proof. So therefore, not taking shelter of the Supreme Controller will be the limitation placed on this argument. It is comparable to the violence committed without any injunction being the condition that makes it sinful. All right, so the word here is upādī. So the upādī, well, to explain an upādī. So in an upādī, in a logical syllogism, X, therefore Y, right? So you have to have some reason being supplied. So that's called it's called the middle term, yeah? So you say, well, this will be applied. So here in this particular case is, the ingredients are perishable, therefore the result is perishable. So the ingredients are perishable, therefore the results are perishable. But sometimes a condition has to be placed on such an argument, right? So if what Jiva Goswami is saying here is that if the ingredients are perishable, then the result will be perishable, unless there is some particular condition applied to the argument. So in this particular, that term is in Tarka Shastra is called upādī. So we've seen the word upādī also, it has other meanings as well. In particular, it's the covering, let's say, of or false identity, the false characteristics of someone. That's also called the upādhi. And upādhi, it means a title or something. It's something that's been placed upon or over something, covering. So here in this particular thing, the syllogism that perishable ingredients lead to perishable results is an applicable argument, except in the case where one takes shelter of not taking shelter of the Supreme Controller. So if you take shelter of the Supreme Controller, then even using perishable results, one can get an imperishable result. Even using perishable ingredients, one can get an imperishable result. So that's what Jiva is saying here. He says that tasmāt parameśvarānāśrayatvaṁ tatropādhir bhaviṣyati. Hiṁsāyāṁ pāpotpatty-anumitāv avihitatatvavat. Right? So it's the same thing, that it's comparable to the violence committed without any injunction being that makes it sinful, or better to say it this way, it's the lack of an injunction that makes violence sinful. Right? So violence is sinful. But if there's an injunction to perform a violent act, let's say for instance in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, nimittamatram bhavasavya, you engage in this battle and I will protect you. Or even there you say that you take shelter of me, give up all dharmas and take shelter of me, and I will protect you from all sinful reactions. So normally the dharmas, if you go against dharma, then you exact a sinful reaction. But Krishna says, if you take shelter of me, then I will protect you from any sinful reaction. So this is the argument that Jiva is making here, that you have this, so the word upādhi is your vocabulary word for today, or one of your vocabulary words for today. Right? So jñāna-prakaraṇe, so let's see, it says jñāna-prakaraṇe cāsmin bhaktir na prastūyata iti sādhāraṇa-yajñādikam upādāyaiva pravṛttiś ceyam. All right? So what Jiva Goswami is saying here is saying, in this discussion in Vishnu Purana, the context is jnana, jñāna-prakarana. There's another word for you, prakarana. Prakarana means a section or discussion. So like in a book, you have in the Vedanta Sutra in particular, you have these different prakaranas. So in that particular prakarana, it's a group of sutras that are arguing one particular point, discussing one particular, let's say, usually in the Vedanta Sutra, one is discussing a particular section of the Upanishads. So bhakti is not under consideration. So why did he say it like that? Okay, so the question is, well, Jora Bharat said that if the ingredients are perishable, the result will be perishable. Well, that's okay here in the context of jnana and the context of karma, but not in the context of bhakti, because so this is why he is taking this opportunity, let's say, to correct or to inform us of what the distinction or the difference between the jnana marga and the bhakti marga and the karma marga, what some of these distinctions will be. So Babaji here says, so let's just say what an upādhi, the definition of upādhi from this is from Monier Williams. An upādhi is a qualifying term added to a too general middle term to prevent ati-vyapti, or overstretch. Right? Let's see what Babaji says here. So Jiva Goswami says that an action is material and thus its result is material. He says that in this argument, not taking shelter of God is the condition, or upādhi. In other words, only if the action is done by a person who is not surrendered to God would its result be perishable. For example, if one says that wherever there is fire, there is smoke, then in this principle, fuel with moisture is the condition. In other words, this principle only applies if the fuel is not completely dry. However, if the fuel has no moisture in it, as with methane gas, then there can be fire without smoke. Sri Jiva gives the example of violence. According to the Veda, an act of violence results in sin. This principle has the upadhi of lacking a Vedic injunction. In other words, the violent act will result in sinful reaction if it is not based upon any Vedic injunction. But if a kshatriya kills his opponent in a just war, or as in the Bhagavad Gita, the 6 kinds of aggressors, so in response to the different kinds of aggressors, then one may act engaged in violent activity. That's quoted by almost all the commentators there in the beginning of the Gita, to show that Arjuna is justified in fighting against and defending himself against these aggressors. But even so, he doesn't want to accept that there is an injunction to fight, and he only sees the sinful part of it. So he has to, well, in that particular case, it's an injunction according to the Vedic injunction. But the deeper injunction there in the Bhagavad Gita is sarvadharman parityaja, that you take shelter of Krishna, and then Krishna will take responsibility for any ill results. So in this case of this, so I think it was rather interesting that this subject came up in relationship to Bharata earlier in the 5th canto, in the 7th chapter, and this has been quoted in Priti Sandarbha 222, and that particular anucheda of the Bhakti Sandarbha is available on my blog. So you can go there and see the argument. It's about apurva. So this is in the question. I think we already discussed it a little bit about apurva. That the question about apurva is that where does the apurva go? Where is the apurva? What's the seat of the apurva? I perform a sacrifice and apurva is being created, but I don't see the apurva. So where is it, right? So the scriptures, it means the Mimamsakas, they have given different arguments. Some say that it's present in the actor, and some people say that it's present in the gods, and so on and so forth. Those are the two basic places that one performs apurva, and somehow it gets assimilated into your subtle body, or it's present in the gods, and they award the result when the time comes. But here there was a statement about Bharata, the king Bharata, when he was performing sacrifices. I'll just read that passage. This is a prose passage. It's a bit long, and I hope it's clear because these long passages have to be broken up into little pieces, and that's to make sense. So after the preparatory rites and component parts of a sacrifice are executed, and the actual sacrifice performed, what results is something not immediately tangible because it is experienced only in the future, such as promotion to heaven. This intangible fruit is called apurva. It is also known as dharma, or the merit accruing from religious rites. While performing sacrifice, King Bharata considered this intangible fruit to be sheltered exclusively in Bhagavan Vasudeva, who is the supreme transcendence and the absolute. He did so because he realized Bhagavan Vasudeva to be the presiding deity of the sacrifice, Yagyo Vai Vishnu, and the controller of all the gods who were revealed by the mantras pertaining to them. As such, it is Bhagavan Vasudeva who is the real agent and chief deity of the sacrifice. So it's the doer of the sacrifice, the agent, what's called the yajamana, right? In the yogic tradition, the person who is the yajamana. He's the one who gets the apurva. The person, the priests and so on, well, they're getting probably a fraction of a portion of it as their share. But the principal seat of the apurva is the karta, the doer, the agent. So he did not take himself to be the agent, but he took Krishna as being the real agent or the real actor of the sacrifice, and as well as being the chief deity. Brahmarpanam brahmahavir brahmagno brahmanahutam brahmaiva tena gantavyam brahma karma samadhina, like in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So he saw that brahmarpanam, that the offering was Brahma. Brahmarpanam brahmahavir, the ghee, the oblation was Brahma, the act of offering, arpanam, the act of offering, the oblation, the thing offered. Brahmagno, the fire, was also Brahman. And Brahmana hutam, so the actor, the doer, the agent, he's also Brahma. Brahmaiva tena gantavyam, and the result, the goal that is achieved through the sacrifice, that's also Brahman. And that is the result of Brahma karma samadhi, to be engaged in full concentration on the divine truth while performing any ritual sacrifice. So this is the same exact thing in Bhakti. So it's not if with that attitude in Bhakti, everything is leading to the supreme truth. We use the word Krishna, but here it's Brahman and Krishna are roughly the same thing in terms of being the absolute truth. So because of Bharata's genius in understanding this truth, he became cleansed of all impurity. When the Advaryu priests used to take the offering in their hands to pour oblations, the host, the Yajamana, Bharata, would consider the gods who are entitled to the share of the sacrifice as limbs of Bhagavan's body. So that's described in more detail there in 222 of the Bhakti Sandarbha. If you want to look it up, you can go look it up there. Or Canto 5, Chapter 7, Verse 6, and see the commentary. Most of this commentary on that verse was just accepted wholesale from Sridhar by Jiva Goswami. All right, so having gotten rid of the question of Apurva, so let's see where he goes next. So tadevaṁ yajñādikam yajñādi-karmāpūrvasya vināśitvād aparamārthatvam uktvā niṣkāma-karmaṇo'pi sādhanatvenārthāntarasyaiva sādhyatvāt tādṛśatvam uktam ekena. So now he took 4 verses. So he's saying, after saying that apurva generated from the act, such as sacrifice, is not the ultimate goal because it is perishable. In the following verse, Jara Bharata says that even motiveless action, niṣkāma-karma, is also not the ultimate goal because it is only a means to another goal, like sadhanam and sadhya. All right, so we now have we've had perishability as being the first stricture that makes an activity not being the paramartha. So now the second one that we have is that if something is a means and not the goal, well, then it can't be the paramartha, right? Because niṣkāma karma, in particular, is stated by the Gyanis that it's a purification process. This is actually the whole Bhagavad Gita is based on this argument, or at least the commentary starting with Shankaracharya are based on the argument that karma itself, though it's discussed in great length in the Bhagavad Gita, that karma is not the end, that karma only is a prerequisite, a purifying process that leads to jnana. But it's jnana itself, that direct experience or direct knowledge or direct consciousness of the Supreme Absolute, Brahman, that is the result. So in that way, karmas are seen as being sadhanas and ultimately given up when one attains the sadhya. So it could be said that the same argument is there, that it's perishability, that the perishable nature of niṣkāma-karma means that it is not the ultimate goal. At any rate, the verse goes like this: tadīya-phalānantya karma paramartho matastava mukti sādhana-bhūtatvat paramartho na sādhanam. So then, do you consider, this is Jora Bharat speaking to Rahugana, then do you consider motiveless action to be the supreme goal because it is a means to liberation? A means cannot be the goal. So he cuts it down right there. So let's see. So then that's Jiva Goswami's response. So actually, I have the. Now you see, I don't see it right here. Let me just see what did. Let's see here. Yes, tadīya-phalānantya karma paramartho matastava mukti sādhana-bhūtatvat paramartho na sādhanam. All right, so Sridhar doesn't have very much to say here. He says, mukti sādhana-bhūtatvat aphaladam ityetat nasti. Tatas yajñādi-karmāpūrvasya paramartho na bhavati iti artha. So if the paramartha cannot be, so what the words that are used by Sridhar is aññāthatvat. So if there's some other artha involved, there can't be anything else involved. If there's some other thing that one activity is leading to, if there's a difference between the means and the end, well, then the means cannot be the final result. So this is what Jiva Goswami is going to argue against, obviously, because in bhakti, the means and the end are the same thing. So atra bhaktehe sādhana-bhūtatvam, sādhana-bhūtatve na tādṛśatvam mantavyam. Bhagavata prema vilasa rupataya siddhanam api tad atyaga-śravaṇāt tasmāt idam api purvavat jñāyam. Right? So in this regard, although bhakti is also a means or a sadhana, it should not be thought of in this way because the scriptures tell us that even perfected beings do not give it up. As it is the manifestation of Bhagavan's love, prema vilasa rupa. Bhagavat prema vilasa rupataya. Nice expression. So bhakti, this is an interesting, subtle point that is missed, I think, in the understanding of bhakti. But we've already encountered it earlier in the earlier points. That since that bhakti is an aspect of Krishna's internal potency, so therefore it's a manifestation of his lila. So therefore it's bhakti, bhagavata prema vilasa rupataya. So since it's part of the internal potency, therefore it's something that's eternal and doesn't, it's not, even though it's a means, it's by the means that one is, this is the same, that Krishna bhakti, nitya siddha Krishna prem, sadhya kabunai, sravanadi shuddha chitte koraye uday. Again, the point was being about nishpadyate, that bhakti is not created. Bhakti descends from the spiritual world. It's not something that one develops It appears to develop. It appears to grow. But it's growing how? It just means that as one becomes purified by engaging in bhakti itself, and it's like the example has been given already before about the iron rod in the fire. If one keeps the iron rod stuck in the fire, it's going to get hot. So in the same way, if one keeps one's mind and senses constantly absorbed in Krishna bhakti, then the mind and senses will be transformed by the internal potency. And that has an external ritual basis. Let's say that when Krishna says, Diksha kale, bhakta kore atma samarpan, se kale koritare atma shomo. Krishna says, amitare kori atma shomo. So dikha kale bhakta kore atma samarpan, se kale amitare kori atma shomo. So Krishna says that at the time of initiation, a devotee gives himself to me. He surrenders himself to me. So at that time, I accept him, and I accept that devotee as my own, as my very own. And then when he's accepted as my very own, then he becomes like me. Tadīya-phalānantya-śravaṇāt sakalpate, right? The person becomes spiritualized. His body becomes spiritualized. That's why it says that the body of a devotee is not material because he needs the spiritual body in order to engage in bhakti. But of course, as we say, there are, let's say it takes a while for the mind and the consciousness to catch up to that external fact. So therefore, like before, sadhana bhakti should also be understood in the same way, in other words, as not to be disqualified for being the paramartha. So it was just as in the previous argument, it was a similar thing, that because it's that bhakti is imperishable, because it's not part of the material nature, even though it appears to be part of the material nature, everything becomes transformed in bhakti. The holy name appears to be an ordinary material sound, but it's not an ordinary material sound. It's part of the spiritual world, right? How does it go again? Gokula mahotsavayate. That it's a part of the internal potency. It's not Krishna Purna Vapushe Namo Namaha. Krishna's name is the complete manifestation of his own form. Krishna is present in all his completeness in the holy name. And as one chants the holy name, one gradually becomes capable of that realization. So the conclusion is that bhakti is not defective because it's a sadhana, but rather it's also the sadhya. So in relation to this verse, Srila Babaji Maharaj says, Sri Jiva Goswami comments that in the dialogue between Jara Bharat and King Rahugana, the subject is jnana, and thus Jara Bharat has not discussed bhakti. So in this case, because of that, he's not arguing in relationship to bhakti. He's simply condemning or minimizing the different kinds of sadhanas, or the different kinds of paramarthas, the different kinds of purusharthas that have been set forth by others, and he's knocking them down from the point of view of jnana. Nevertheless, we can take from the point of view of bhakti and adjust in order to understand properly the relationship of bhakti to these other sadhanas. And in fact, we can take the position of the Gyanis here, but not fully. In the first verse of the series, he only talks of karma not being the purushartha, taking it to be a precursor to jnana. First he argues against sakama, and then niṣkāma-karma, as in this last verse. The reason the latter is inadequate is that it is only a means to jnana, which results in mukti. A means, by definition, is different from the goal, the sādhya, or in this case, the paramartha. Nobody does niṣkāma karma for the sake of niṣkāma karma. If you're engaged in activity and you're not doing it for the results, then why are you doing it? Well, you're doing it to get some kind of self-purification. One may object that bhakti, like niṣkāma karma, is also performed without any selfish motive, but only to give pleasure to Bhagavan. So it cannot be the purushartha because it is only a means to the end of priti. Sri Jiva replies that bhakti is both the means and the end. Priti is nothing more than the mature state of bhakti. It is not something different in the way that jnana is from niṣkāma karma. It was already said that bhakti is not material action, but a manifestation of the intrinsic potency of Bhagavan. Therefore, it is seen that even perfected beings like Narada perform bhakti, but that jnanis give up karma. And also jnanis give up bhakti because they see bhakti as being like karma, just simply an extension of the process of karma, of self-purification. So when through bhakti is kind of like the higher end of niṣkāma karma. So it also is to be given up. So in this particular case, it's perhaps that, it would require just a little bit more analysis here to look at these verses to see whether that particular aspect of things is a part of Jora Bharat's thesis here. So that completes the section on karma. Now he goes on to some aspects of, I think the next one we can say is about yoga as being explained in the Yoga Sutra. So he's not satisfied with the Yoga Sutra with kaivalya and the idea that one meditates on the pure self. Well, whether that's what the exact process of yoga is or not, but certainly to be situated in the pure self is the goal of yoga. So he uses the word dhyana here, and that it's a meditation on the pure self. So that's the state of consciousness without any object. So nanu shuddha jivatma dhyanasya paramarthatvam bhavet. So let us take meditation then on the pure jiva to be the ultimate goal. Mukti dashayamapi sfurti angikarena tadrupasya tasyanashwaratvat. So such meditation is imperishable, since its manifestation is accepted as taking place even in the liberated stage. And tada achādanāt aduna samsara iti tasyaiva sādhyatvāt cha. And because it is the goal of practice, since one's present material bondage is a result of its real nature being covered. So the nature of the soul, the nature of the Atma is that it is covered. So one meditates on the pure state of the soul, right, beyond all the material coverings, all the upadhis. And so that's the sadhya. It's a sadhya because a liberated person, a person who's attained kaivalya, is considered to be liberated. So it's not perishable. So the argument that it's perishable is to be rejected. And it's also not merely a sadhana, but it's also the sadhya. So therefore it doesn't have the two defects that were already spoken of in relationship to sakama karma and niṣkāma karma. So Jora Bharat answers this problem, he answers this in one verse. Dhyanam chedatmano bhupa paramarthartha-shabditam Bhedakari parebhyastat paramartho na bhedavan. Well, basically, bhedavan. So in the yoga system, the Sankhya and yoga system, the whole goal is to separate. Right? There's one very nice statement by I think Bojadev in his commentary or his bhashya on the Yoga Sutra, and he says that yoga really means viyoga. So viyoga, we come across that expression. Viyoga means separation. Right? Yoga means to join together, and viyoga means to separate two things. So yoga really means viyoga because one separates oneself from matter. Right? The pure soul has to separate himself from even the most subtle manifestations of matter. And then he is situated in his pure being, in his pure state, pure consciousness without any reference to prakriti. As long as we're in the material world and identifying with the body, which is our upadi, this is the condition. Our condition means that we are not able to experience ourselves as we really are. So the goal of the yogis is through meditation to separate themselves one by one from the grossest to the most subtle aspects of material nature in order to be situated fully in the self. So therefore he says, Vedakari parebhyas. So it is separated from the other things. Para means other. So other is plural here. So Vedakari, making different from others. And paramartho na bhedavan. So that's rejected because in the paramartha, we don't make divisions. So in the paramartha, we don't make a division between prakriti and purusha. The unicity of the absolute truth includes both prakriti and purusha. So this is more fully in the Vaishnava system. This problem is more aptly solved than in the Advaitavad, because in Advaitavad they just say it's not real. So by saying it's not real, therefore they've thought that they've solved the problem, but basically they're doing exactly the same as the yogis, because the yogis are saying not that it's not real, but I'm not going to have anything to do with it. So So this is why the yoga system and the Advaitavada system are nicely coordinated together, even though there are purists on both sides who will say that yoga and Advaitavada are not harmonious, but in actual fact they're very harmonious. The yogi, he differentiates himself from the products of prakriti, and the Advaitavadin, he separates himself from the illusion because it's not real. And so he has to keep in mind at all times that this is all not real. So basically the two processes are approaching the same thing in two different ways. One is through the process of meditation and actively taking the mind away through pratyahara and dhyana samadhi, and to take the mind away and progressively fixate the mind on the self alone. Whereas the jnani does that through the process of knowledge, through the process of conscious awareness. But ultimately, they both need each other. Both these processes need to take the help of the other in order to, because in the vyuttana stage, one needs to have jnana, and in the meditative stage, one needs to have yoga. So the supreme goal is devoid of any distinctions. So obviously, from the Jora Bharat here is taking the Advaitavada argument, but the Vaishnava sees that this argument is inadequate. That the argument from the Advaitavada, just simply calling everything illusion, is not the satisfactory way of responding to the existence of the material world. So rather, so the Vaishnava says the material world is Krishna's prakriti, it's Krishna's energy. Bhumirapo nalo vayu kam mano buddhirevacha ahankara itiya me vinna prakriti ashtada. So this the material world is my separated energy. But being, even though it's separated from him, the terms that we've been using in the so far in the Priti Sandarbha is bahirangatvam and antarangatvam. So we have a bahiranga or bahiranga energy, the bahiranga shakti. So it's the pinna prakriti ashtada. It's the separated energy. So as long as one sees it separated, well, then it's this use of the word pinna, that bhedavan, that the paramartha is not bhedavan. But if we see the material nature in relationship to Krishna, well, then it's no longer material, even though it appears to be material. So this is the point that was made from the in the earlier verses as well, that when one takes shelter of Krishna, then the ingredients in the sacrifice, that those are not material. And when one is situated in, when one understands that when one understands that the material world is not separate from Krishna, then it also, one's activities within this world are parts of the ultimate goal and not merely means to something else. So generally speaking, in the material world, we see the material world as being a means to the end. That everything in the material world is being provided as a means to an end. But for a devotee, the world is not a means to the end, it's the end itself. But it can only be the end itself if one has the condition, the upādāyaiva, of taking shelter of Krishna. So this is how we would argue against, and from the Bhakti point of view, the dissatisfaction with this particular argument of Jara Bharat. Let's see what is stated. Let's just see Sridhar Swami's. Sridhar Swami here says that the dhyanam, the verse is dhyanam chedatmano bhupa paramarthatvam. Well, I hope that's not. There's an airplane going overhead. We don't really get many airplanes going overhead here. But that one's a noisy one. Well, I don't know if that came. I think that probably got caught by the mic. All right. So back to the verse. So dhyanam chedatmano bhupa paramarthartha shabditam. So if you meditation on the self, or meditation of the Atma, if you take that to be the paramartha, then Vedakari parebhyastat, it is a maker of divisions from other things, or it creates a separation from other things, so that parebhyaha, so that the paramartha cannot be bhedavan, it cannot be cause separation in that way. So Sridhar says, parebhyaha dehadibhyaha vivichya atmanas chittalambani bhutasya dhyayatvat dhyanam vedakari paramarthascha na bhedavan ekam evadvitiyam brahma. Well, there you go. That's exactly what I was saying, basically. So when one uses the Atma as the alambana, so you understand the word alambana if you've come across in yoga, that in yoga the process of meditation is based on alambanas. So one starts from gross meditations, one tries to concentrate on one particular thing, and then gradually one purifies that, until one is able to give up that alambana. But at any rate, here so the way that Sridhar is expressing that, one separates from he says parebhya, from the others, meaning the deha adibhya, the body, etc. So body, and then subtler aspects, the mind, and so on, going from the annamaya kosha to the pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha, anandamaya kosha, and one drops all these different coverings and comes to the state of the Atma. Well, so what Sridhar quotes, ekam eva advitiyam brahma, the absolute truth Brahma is one only, there's no second there. So this important statement from the Shrutis is taken to be the defining characteristic of Brahman. There can be no duality. It's an absence, why we call it kevaladvaitavada, and that it's absolute, that there can be no duality. And so in the yoga system, the duality of Prakriti and Purush are maintained. So what does Jiva Goswami say? So yad vijnanena sarva vijnanam bhavati tadeva brahma. So this is not a direct quote, but he's saying that in the Shrutis, Shrutau parameśvarānāśrayatvaṁ parigyatam. So Jiva Goswami is taking a different, so if one knows Brahma, then one knows everything. This is the point that this is the angle that Jiva Goswami takes. So Veda, the difference is if there are distinctions between one and the other, that one will not know everything by only knowing the Jiva, who, in our view, is a part. So here it's a question of the part and the whole. So if one only takes the part without reference to the whole, then that knowledge that will not fulfill the promise, the pratigya of the Shastra, that by knowing which, that the supreme truth or the ultimate goal is that by knowing which all things are known, or by realizing, by understanding which, by having direct realization of which, one will have a proper understanding of all things. So he says, sarva vijnanamayatvam chatasya sarvatmatvat. So since it is possible to know all things through the ultimate truth, because he is the self of all things. So since if you water the root of the tree, to use a familiar example, if you water the root of a tree, well then you feed the whole tree. So in the same way, if you know, if you have, because you're going to the root. So the sarva, the self of all things, that's the supreme truth. And if one attains the self of all things, well then one can. That's why this statement, yasmin vigyate sarvameva vigyatam bhavati, that all things are known by knowing it. So here gives a further example. Agni vijnanam hi jwala visfulingader api vigyapakam bhavati. Well, he uses the example of fire. If you understand fire, well then you'll understand the flames, you'll understand the sparks and so on as well. But ekasya jivasya tu tadīya-shakti lakṣanaṅśha paramanutvam iti atas tasya tasfuranasya cha bhedavato na paramarthatvam iti artha. So the thing is that he's saying, but the one jiva, a single jiva, is just simply an atomic portion of the jiva shakti belonging to the supreme truth. Therefore, even to know it properly is still separate from the whole, even of the jiva shakti. So therefore it cannot be the paramartha. So it has been asserted in the Shruti that Brahman, by knowledge of which alone everything becomes fully known, is the supreme goal. Because Brahman is the self or essence of everything, knowledge of it is all-encompassing. Knowledge of fire includes knowledge of the flame, sparks, and so on. The individual living entity is an atomic being, a fraction of Brahman's jiva potency. Therefore, since the manifestation of the jiva is here being taken as distinct from it, it cannot be the supreme goal. So therefore, that which creates, here is a slightly, so therefore that which creates a difference between him and the meditative knowledge of the jiva cannot be the supreme goal. That was the original translation here. That which creates a difference between him and the meditative knowledge of the jiva cannot be the ultimate goal. Well, I didn't think that translation was sufficiently clear. Therefore, since the manifestation of the jiva, would be the jiva, Babaji translates as meditative knowledge of the jiva, is taken as is distinct from it, it cannot be the supreme goal. So Babaji writes here, an alternative possibility is being presented. Let meditation on the pure jiva be the purushartha. The jiva is eternal, and meditation on it can continue even in the liberated stage. It does not have any other motive and can be done for its own sake. And it is also blissful. To this proposal, Jarabharata replies that then there would be two different realities, the jiva and the supreme tattva, which goes against the principle of reality is one without a second, ekam eva advitiyam. And such a purushartha also goes against the shruti that says by knowing which everything becomes known. Only such a reality is advocated in the scriptures as the object of achievement. By knowing Brahman, one knows the Atma, but knowing the Atma, the part, one does not know the whole. In the 6th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad, one finds the story of Shvetaketu, the son of Aruni. His father ordered him to go and study under a teacher. Taking the order, the boy went and studied the Vedas for 12 years and returned home as a young man of 24. He was very proud of his learning. His father noticed it and was not happy. He told him, "O Shvetaketu, O beautiful one, now that you are proud of being a scholar, did you ask about that wisdom through which the unheard becomes heard, unthought becomes thought, and unknown becomes known?" Shvetaketo yananu somyedama mahamana anuchanamani stabdhosi uta tam adesham aprakshya yenasrutam srutam bhavati amatam amatam avigyatam vikyatam iti katam nu bhagavat sa adesho bhavati. Aprakshya, you must have asked, is actually a better translation there. That's so the meditation on the self would not fit such a description of the Purushartha. Knowledge of the jiva would not lead to the knowledge of the absolute. The bliss of knowing oneself will not give complete satisfaction because it is very limited. The Chandogya Upanishad says that happiness lies in the great and not in that which is limited. So, yo vai bhuma tat sukham, nalpe sukham asti. So, that is where we're going to stop for today. So, there were two destinations. I think we'll have to go back and adjust a little bit here, I think. Because, well, not adjust, but I think I can add something here to this commentary. So, conclusion. The Atma, meditation on the Atma alone, as in the yoga system. So what Jarabharata is doing here, he's arguing against the Patanjali yoga system. Separating the Prakriti from the Purush, separating the Purush from the Prakriti is not the totality because it doesn't account for Prakriti. Ekam eva advitiyam means that Prakriti is also being included within Brahman. Even if that solution, according to the Kevaladvaitavadis, is that it is illusory. But we as Vaishnavas, we're also Advaitavadis, we're also Vedantists, but we don't agree that this world is illusion. We say that it is a part of the absolute truth, it's a part of Krishna's energy, and therefore, by seeing it in relationship to him, we neither have created an artificial distinction between ourselves and the world and God, and ourselves and God. Those artificial distinctions are removed. So it's not bhedavan. There is no separation. There's no division being made. So we don't go the ekam eva advityam. That statement is kept true to the Vaishnava tattva without recourse to the philosophy of illusion. Well, let's stop there. Jai Jai Sri Radhe, Jai Jai Sri Radhe, Jai Jai Sri Radhe Shyam.